apparently to 20 or 30 people at the gathering on the 18th of December. A source told the BBC there was food, drink and games at the event. Well, Maria Eagle is the Labour MP for Garston and Halewood. She's with us now. Maria, this party story has dominated the news this week. What do you make of it all?
Well, it's not surprising it's dominated the news because the Prime Minister and his senior staff have all been denying that it happened. And there seems to be clear evidence, and lots of it, that it did happen. It was in complete breach of the law, not just the rules. And if the Prime Minister is willing to lie so blatantly, so repeatedly in that manner, it has a real implication for our government and whether or not we can believe a word they say. And what he's done has undermined the public health messages that are necessary to enable us to get through the pandemic and the new Omicron sort of challenge. And he thinks he can just get away with lying. He's got no moral authority. He seems to lie whenever he opens his mouth. How can anybody believe what he says about anything? And that undermines trust in the government.
But he would say that he is very serious about the threat of Omicron and that he is acting swiftly to try and slow the spread. Are you really sure that the public health message is being undermined by this lack of clarity over what happened in Downing Street?
You know, a lot of people, we saw it when Dominic Cummings, went up to on his trip during the lockdown and then tried to claim that he was testing his eyesight out. If you've got people telling you what to do who don't do it themselves, it completely undermines the message. And people think, well, if you're not going to take any notice of the rules, why should I? And when we've got a pandemic happening where people end up dying if the rules aren't followed, then that's potentially very serious. And the fact is he's condoned law breaking in his own place of work and his own place where he lives. And he's gone out and denied that it's happened. And it's not just one party. I mean, we're up to 7 if you read the newspapers now. And so this is repeated, clear breaking of the rules of a kind that's unprecedented in government. And it's just, people are finally getting fed up. I tell you, I've been in the constituency in the past couple of days and everybody's talking about it. This has really cut through, and not in a good way for the government. I mean, obviously in Liverpool, we've never really been fooled by Boris Johnson and his antics. And we've known over many years that he's inclined to lie. But now he just seems to lie all the time about everything as long as it suits him. You can't have a Prime Minister carrying on who does that. You really can't.
Now, I know you don't have many friends who are Conservative MPs, but you must be picking up the mood in the party. I mean, they do have an 80-seat majority, but are some Conservatives nervous? I mean, there's always the threat from within in the Conservative Party. What's your sense?
They are increasingly fed up. I mean, first of all, he lied to all his own backbenchers and cabinet ministers who he sent out to say that there was no party when he knew that there was, and they've been made to look like idiots.
He says he doesn't. The claim is that he doesn't know that there was, and he said that he doesn't know that there was.
He's been saying that he's been assured that there was no party, and that if there was, all the rules were followed. Well, I mean, that's contradictory in itself. He just says whatever it suits him to get through the moment. And the thing is, a lot of his backbenchers and cabinet ministers are now fed up of being lied to as well, because they're the ones who get made to look like idiots. I mean, this is a man who's lied to his own ethics advisor to try and get himself off the hook over the flat, number 10 flat.
Allegedly. and that story about the refurbishment of the Downing Street flat is something else that we've talked about on the programme already this evening. Moving away from the Downing Street debacle and the parties that were or weren't there, in other news, you've been trying again to get a second reading for your public advocate bill in the House of Commons, the Hillsborough law, if you like. What happened today?
Yeah. Well, the government objected again to giving the bill a second reading, and so it didn't make any progress today. I've got it back in the list for the 14th of January, and we'll try again. I am conducting some discussions with the government to try and get them to understand the importance of the bill, and I hope that in due course they will do that and will allow it to continue, but we didn't make any progress today, I'm afraid to say. And
why is that? I know on previous occasions, if someone just objects to a second reading date being given, then it kind of gets knocked off and has to start again. I mean, for people who don't understand the process, can you just explain?
Well, there are various Fridays and slots in the Commons timetable when you can try and make progress for bills that are not government business, like this one. The usual problem is there isn't enough time to have them all debated. Now, if the government hadn't objected today, we would have been able to get through the second reading and get it into a committee stage that would have made some progress. They have objected, I'm assuming, because it's their way of controlling the agenda. But if I can persuade them, as I'm trying to do, that there are some good things that they should do that are in this bill, then they may allow it to make some progress or take over it and do it themselves. I don't mind which, by the way. I just want the bill on the statute book. So that's what I'm trying to persuade them of. To be honest with you, the cabinet reshuffle hasn't helped because some of the people that I was talking to have been sacked. So you've then got to start talking to the new incumbents. But I'm hoping that to make some progress, and the government are going to have to respond to Bishop James Jones's 2017 report into the lessons learned from Hillsborough. And one of the responses they could come up with is to enact this piece of legislation. That would be a fitting response. So I am hopeful that we can make some progress, but we just haven't made any yet.
Well, we'll keep following it because I know it's something, our listeners are incredibly interested in. And of course, you have been part of the campaign for justice for the Hillsborough victims and survivors since the disaster happened, really. But this week, the 97th victim of the disaster, Andrew Devine, was granted the freedom of the city of Liverpool. A fitting tribute, I'm sure you believe.
I do believe that, yes, it really is a fitting tribute because the 96 others who died had already received that honour, which has been a comfort to their families. And I'm sure that adding Mr. Devine to the freedom roll will have similarly been a comfort to his family. And I'm sure that they will understand the great honour that is and that it marks the importance to the city and to all of us of remembering the 97 people. I think it's also appropriate that Jimmy McGovern received the freedom of the city as well, because I think that his drama documentary, Hillsborough, that everybody remembers, really changed the narrative from it always being one of the families having to defend alleged football hooliganism to one of police misconduct and police abuse of their power, which is, of course, the real story behind Hillsborough. And that drama documentary was responsible for that. So I think it's very fitting that he's been honoured as well.
And finally, we've been talking a lot in the programme today about the G7 meeting in Liverpool, the foreign and development ministers from the richest democracies in the world coming here. What does it mean, do you think, to Liverpool to host this event?
Oh, it's really good because it's one of only 3 events. It's the final event of the UK's G7 presidency. The others were, the Leaders Forum in Carbis Bay, and then there's COP26 in Glasgow. And so there aren't many places that have been able to host these events. And it enables a city to showcase its current ambitions and the future that it wants for itself. And it enables many important foreign leaders and foreign ministers to have a look at the city and what it can offer, and hopefully to remember us and want to come again and have dealings with us. And that's only can be good. And so I very much welcome the fact that the event is in Liverpool, and I'm sure that everybody who attends it will have a great time, as well as getting some really useful